Good morning, everyone. By the time this is being on, I'll complete the formality of thanking Dr. Pandey and the other co-speakers of this session for giving me this opportunity. Now, I would be talking about dissociated vertical deviations, and as the name suggests, it means that the deviation is dissociated. One eye moves involuntarily and independently of the other eye, which is not in accordance with the Hering's law. Demographically, it usually manifests by the age of 2 to 5 years, and 14 to 90% of infantile esotropes have been reported to have this. It is usually bilateral, maybe asymmetrical, it may be unilateral. It is asymptomatic very often. It may be aphoria or atropia, and when manifest, there may be symptoms of asthenopia, diplopia, or visual confusion. It may be associated with latent or manifest nystagmus. Classically, dissociated vertical deviation refers to spontaneous updrift of either eye when the patient is fatigued, daydreaming, or when fusion is artificially interrupted. It is classically associated with abduction and excycloduction of the updrifting eye. And you can see the dissociation, like when you cover this eye, the left eye moves up, and if you remove the cover from the left eye to the right eye moves down to take up the fixation, and you would expect that when the right eye is moving down, the left eye should also move down, but it doesn't. It moves updrifts slowly. The Bielchowski phenomenon is a very interesting phenomenon which has been described. Now, if there is an occluder in front of one of the eyes, this eye is updrifted, and as you reduce the intensity of light to the fixating eye, this eye drifts down gradually, and it may overshoot. That means it may go down below the midline, and as you again increase the intensity of light here, this eye will show an updrift. The size of the DVD is measured before we decide for the management, and we have to also look for concomitance. That means we look at the amount of updrift in adduction, abduction, and primary elevation. The main differential diagnosis is from primary inferior oblique overaction, and I would like to only highlight the point that the primary inferior oblique overaction is marked in adduction, whereas DVD is present in all the gazes, and the speed of vertical deviation and refixation movement is slower in DVD and it is rapid in inferior oblique. This is just a small video to show. This is just a small video to show that in DVD the hyperdeviation is present in all the gazes. See, the left eye updrifts. The updrift is present in adduction position also. See that? And in abduction position also you see the updrift. The inferior oblique overaction has an updrift only in adduction. There are certain other interesting observations, but I would like to emphasize that the diagnosis is usually clinical, in fact always clinical, and the EMG, EOG have shown an increased firing of the elevator muscles. The velocity of elevation and return refixation movement is slow. An MRI has shown a disorganized architecture and altered size of substantia nigra, and VEP has suggested a misrouting of temporal retinal fibers crossing. Etiologically, the most accepted theory is that given by Bielchowski, that is, there is a vertical vergence innervation. The other theories that have been forwarded is elastic preponderance of elevator muscles, bilateral paresis of depressor muscles, abnormal visual pathway routing, coincidence voluntary fixation, and it has been suggested that it may represent the phylogenetic residuum of monoocular vertical movements which are seen in birds. The management is by and large surgical. Non-surgical management is considered in asymptomatic patients and in patients of infantile esotropia after successful horizontal muscle surgery. The non-surgical options are, of course, spectacle correction, as in all patients of strabismus. That is the first step before we decide to deal with the binocular problem. The second is to enhance fusion, and in selected case patients, the optical blur with of the eye may reduce the deviation and the patient may become better. The goal is to minimize the dissociation and to improve cosmesis and to remove the symptoms, which may be asthenopia, pure fusion, or anomalous head posture. In order of preference, the first choice is large recession of the superior recti, and it may be done unilaterally, bilaterally, symmetrical or asymmetrical. Unilateral is done in unilateral DVDs, and when unilateral, the amount of recession done is usually lesser than that which is done, lesser amount than that which is done for bilateral cases. Anteropositioning or weakening of the inferior oblique is the second option, and inferior rectus resection is usually done as a second stage procedure. In small cases, in cases with a smaller degree, retroequatorial myopaxy accompanied with or without recession of the superior rectus is done. Now, if there is an concomitant DVD, that means there is a DVD which shows that it is either maximum in more in adduction or more in abduction, then we have to decide according to the presentation. If it is more in adduction, then and in abduction it is less than 5 PD, I'm here, then our primary choice is the inferior oblique. And if it is more in adduction but in abduction also there is more than 5 PD, then our primary choice, as in all cases, is superior rectus weakening. And if it is greatest in abduction, then of course superior rectus recession, along with sometimes you may have to use the superior oblique of the other eye. The surgical dose, as I already said, when they are bilateral, we may be able to do larger recessions. When it is unilateral, we usually do lesser recessions. And the complications of surgery are the usual complications, other than the DVD cases very often show recurrence, or there may be residual DVD, and one would expect that with large recessions you might get a weakness of the elevation, but that is usually not a problem. Palpebral fissure changes have been reported, again not always, but in some cases. And to conclude, DVD should be diagnosed after excluding any other ocular motility abnormality. So we should always look for, when we are examining, the ocular motility. Then the non-surgical options can be considered in asymptomatic patients and in those with refractive errors, and after horizontal alignment of patients of infantile esotropia, that, as I suggested, by optical blur of the larger deviating eye. And there was a misprint in one of the slides. Most patients of obvious DVD respond well to surgery, and recurrences even after large superior rectus resections are not uncommon, but may be tackled by additional resections of the inferior rectus. Thank you.